Alrighty, so yesterday I did the prediction of the Eastern Conference table, and there's a link in the description below in terms of the Eastern Conference prediction I made yesterday. Now it's time to talk about the West, and there's no doubt that one thing I'll say about the West, one, it's definitely going to be much stronger this year compared to last season. It'll definitely compete with the Eastern Conference and almost equal to be as strong as the Eastern Conference. But secondly, I do think that there are going to be some teams that miss out on the playoffs last season that definitely could make it to the playoffs, and it's not going to be as predictable as what we saw when I made my prediction of the Eastern Conference, where I'm kind of already starting to regret putting a lot of teams that made it to the playoffs back in the playoff picture, a lot of teams that did not make it to the playoffs once again missing out of the playoffs, because as we've seen in years past, things can definitely change. We can definitely see teams that missed out on the playoffs easily get themselves back in the playoff picture, and likewise, vice versa. We see teams that made it to the playoff previous season, they go through an injury crisis or things doesn't go so well for them, and they easily miss out on the playoffs. But with that being said, let us begin at number 15, and also just like what I said with the Eastern Conference prediction. Let me know in the comments below what do you think of these prediction, and this is basically my opinion. You can definitely disagree with my opinion in the comment section below. And again, I'll mention this once again when I finish this prediction video. But starting at number 15 to pick the team that finished dead last. And that, of course, is the Vancouver Whitecaps. Now, unlike the Eastern Conference, this was a little bit tougher to pick who exactly is going to finish dead last in the West because, when you look at pretty much all the team in the Western Conference, there really isn't one team that I can really say that, yeah, that is definitely going to be a team that's going to finish dead last and maybe compete for the wooden spoon. So it gets a little tough to actually pick who's going to finish last in the standings. And I would not be surprised if I get this completely wrong. But I simply put the Vancouver Whitecaps here mainly because there's been a lot of question when it comes to this team heading into this season, from the ownership group to them not really spending too much on the team as a result of that, to the new head coach in Jasper Sorensen. Is he considered to be an upgrade to Vanni Sartini and the style that he will play? And then, of course, the depth that they lost this season, or in the off season as well, that they didn't really quite replace because again, they didn't really spend a lot of money or spend any transfer to replace those kind of players. So because of all those questions that it's being there, I mean, this is kind of the worst case scenario where if those answer are probably yeah, it's not gonna go well. It's gonna completely fall apart. Then yeah, they're probably gonna finish dead last in the standings. But if those questions are answered correctly, if Jasper Sorensen actually turns out to be a good coach, and if the Ryan Brian White and Ryan Gaul connection continue to be strong once again, and this team continue to be consistent, like what we've seen the last couple of years, then yeah, I think I might be completely wrong putting them dead last in the standings. Now at number 14, and that, of course, is FC Dallas. So this again might be crazy to put them this low in the standings. Consider, wait a minute, didn't they just add Lucho Acosta as well? Yes, they did add Lucho Acosta to this team, and I think he's going to do very well with Pedro Musa. I mean, if you thought Pedro Musa was good last year, he's going to be even better now that he have Lucho Acosta. I'm started getting a very strong Lucho Acosta and Brendan Vasquez kind of combination with FC Cincinnati a couple of years ago to what I think him and Pedro Musa is going to do so. But besides that, I mean, when you look at the rest of the team, there is still a lot of question mark of this team. There's no doubt the youth players are going to play a big part in this team. But again, besides that, there's question with that. There's also question when it comes to their defense as well. They really didn't do much in terms of improving their defense, and if they did, in terms of some of the signing, there's a big unknown in terms of that. And the same goes for new head coach Peter Quill as well. When it comes to USL Championship head coach coming to MLS, it's been a mixed bag. There's been some lower league head coach that comes into the league and do well, and then there are some that, of course, doesn't do relatively well. Though I will say that he is kind of almost promoted with. And I mean, I know he was with New Mexico United last year, but he's really been with that Dallas system for a while, that it's your classic kind of head coach hire where Dallas are going to be promoted within from guys that used to work for with either their academy or part of the team, and then eventually going to promote within. Now, so far, most of those way of doing it, it's been kind of a mixed bag. There's some that does very well, But then there are some that are just does it terribly to a point where they decide to fire them and replace another guy that comes from the Dallas system and they promote within. But yeah, because of all the question I have when it comes to the defense of this team and the unknown of whether we're going to see another big young talent player stepped up for this Dallas team, I'm going to have to put them relatively low as well. Now, at number 13, and this one could be even a bigger surprise putting RSL this low. I can definitely hear RSL fans are going to be absolutely mad that I put them this low in the standings, and people think, how in the world did I put this team that finished third in the standings last year and pretty much dropped 10 spots heading into this season? Well, here's the thing when it comes to RSL, they lose some big pieces this off season, losing Chicho Arango. I know he had a bad second half of the season, but I still think that that's a huge loss for them as well. And then of course not retaining Matt Crooks as well. That was also a big surprise. Consider I thought he was going to be one of the future piece for this RSL team heading in to this season as well. And just like what I talked about Dallas and the Whitecaps, there's a lot of question when it comes to this roster as well of whether or not if it's good enough, even with the signings that they made this off season as well. Obviously, I think the most talented player on this team is Diego Luna. He's definitely going to carry this team a lot on the attacking end. But besides that, there's a lot of question mark. And even going back to some of those summer signings that they had, guys like Diego Gonzalez and Darnell Machuk. We'll see whether or not if they can step up after they were a little bit underwhelming last season as well. Then we go to number 12. And this is where I put the new boys, San Diego FC, in this spot. Now, I've seen a lot of people putting this team dead last in the standings, and I know why some people might think this team is not going to do relatively well. I mean, there's a lot of question when it comes to the structure and the tactics of this team, and that I also have question when it comes to the defense and the goalkeeping of this team. One thing I know about the San Diego team, I have a feeling this team could be something similar to what we see with LAFC when they enter the league, where LAFC had some really good, talented attacking player. This San Diego team definitely has the same thing as well. I mean, when you have pretty much almost like a Carlos Vela clone in Chucky Lozano on your team, you're going to do some good thing about that. But then going back to talk about the midfield and the defense. I mean, I know they have a decent option in Luca De La Torre. In the defensive area, the only guy I really trust out there is Andres Reyes as well, and we'll see whether or not if he can continue that incredible form that he had in the playoffs. Because there's been times where he's a little inconsistent at time as well. But I think the goalkeeping spot is probably the biggest question with this team. Again, CJ Dos Santos. This is another example of an expansion team trying to give guys that maybe play second fiddle with a team and really breaks out. We'll see whether if he can do that. And then even going to Mikey Veras as well. Coming from the Greg Berhalter coaching tree, which Greg Berhalter as one of the thing that a lot of people criticize about is the boring style of soccer that they play in the national team. I don't think Mikey Veras is going to play that style. I think it's going to be more possession wise and more attack kind of minded as well. Consider I do think that this is a team that is a very attacking minded kind of team, which will make it much more entertaining to watch as an expansion team compared to some expansion team that maybe are a little bit more defensive minded heading into this season. But again, I'm gonna put them in 12. This is usually where I put expansion team because again, when it comes to the biggest unknown, it's always going to be expansion team. You just don't know exactly if it's going to be a great first season or is it going to be a respectable first season. I think if you talk any San Diego FC fans, with me putting them in 12th place, I think they will be very happy about it because at the end of the day, expansion season is always the most daunting thing. You just don't know what you're going to get, especially from the first couple of games. You can be like what we saw with St. Louis last year, kind of jump out of the gate and surprise everyone with 5 straight win, or you could be like FC Cincinnati when they're in their expansion season of how bad that, of course, gone, or as it is the case with a lot of expansion team before St. Louis making that incredible will start to their life in MLS where they really struggle out of the gate before they kind of finally figure it out as the season goes along. Now, in 11th place, and that of course is going to be my team, or at least one of my team that is the San Jose Earthquake. So I do also see people put the Quakes above the red line right now, and I can understand because, as I mentioned before, this attack, this is probably the most lethal, I think, thing when it comes to the Quakes attack in recent memory. You know, getting the likes of Chicho Arango and Joseph Martinez definitely kind of helps that. But most importantly, keeping Hernan Lopez as well. I know there was a discussion that they were gonna get Lucho Acosta as well, and you know the debate is still on whether or not was it the right decision for the Quakes to keep Hernan Lopez instead of going for Lucho Acosta. If you want my opinion, I think it's the right thing that they decided to keep Hernan Lopez because I think Hernan last year, doing his short time with the Quakes, there was that potential that he could be a great 10 and a great playmaker that this team desperate needs. The only reason why he kind of faded as the season goes along is because he doesn't really have anybody to feed the ball to finish the goal. But now you do with the likes of Chicho Arango and Joseph Martinez as well. And then I haven't even mentioned about Christian Espinosa too, one of the most underrated winger in the league. The reason why I still put them relatively low in the standings is that you know people still haven't really talked about how I am still very concerned when it comes to this defense and midfield. I mean, mostly the defense too because they really didn't do anything when it comes to fixing this back line. And sure, maybe Bruce Arena will say that magically he'll fix this back line. And I also know that he brought in some New England players to try to fix that. You know, bringing Dave Romney to that back line. We'll see whether that of course, would work out. They'll definitely need the Dave Romney from Nashville rather than the Dave Romney from New England that didn't do so well during his time with the Revs. But for a team that gave up 78 plus goal and really didn't make too much adjustment in the defense, yeah, I feel like the attack is going to have to really carry this team. And when you have that kind of situation, more times or not, when you're a team that is very top heavy on attack but very weak on the defensive end, yeah, more times than not, they're kind of like fringe playoff team, but definitely exciting fringe playoff team. I think this might be the most exciting team that the Quakes might have, probably since Mateus Almeida had that man marking system. That is probably, I think that team, it's going to take a lot to say that that is the most entertaining Quakes team because what Mateus Almeida did to that team, the man marking thing, man, I'm still thinking about it, even that was a couple of years ago. But no doubt that I think it's going to be an improvement for the Quakes. I think they could definitely get themselves up the red line, but I do think that you know just for safety, I'm just gonna put them just outside of the playoff picture mainly. Again, I have a lot of question when it comes to the defensive end, and also I have question about the goalkeeper Danielle. Can he stay healthy? Because if he can't stay healthy, oh boy, this could be similar to what we saw last season. Where besides the reason why they gave up 78 plus goal last season wasn't just because of the bad defense. They basically had no goalkeeper last year as well. And if Danielle goes down, I don't really trust Earl Edward Jr. is going to be a guy that could make those big saves to keep this team in games because of how bad their back line could be throughout the season. Then we go to number 10. I'm going to say it's the Portland Timbers. So for the last couple of years, the Timbers has been kind of around this spot. So I think it's only fitting the fact that I picked them around the fringe playoff position. And again, the Timbers is kind of like the Quakes. This team is very top heavy on the attacking end as well. Though it will be to be determined to see whether or not if DaCosta can have that same impact that Evander of course, has for this team. I mean, replacing Evander is going to be really tough. I know that a lot of Timbers fans have said good things about DaCosta, but we'll see whether or not if he can carry that weight that Evander left on this team. But besides that, we know this team has a very good attacking core. It's the defense that is a huge issue with this team. They again hasn't really made too much changes when it comes to their defense. Part of that is because they're kind of forced to not able to make the change because of how many players under contract on that back line. But also part of it is what I'm kind of head scratching of the fact that you know your defense is bad. So why aren't you even thinking about either getting rid of some of these bad contract or maybe get some new faces out there? And then of course you know with Phil Neville, when it comes to him, he's always very inconsistent. I would not be surprised the Portland Timbers might be similar to what we saw last season, where it's going to be an up and down kind of team. There's going to be some good moment that the Timbers will have, but then there's times where yeah, things would just completely fall apart, just like what we saw last year down the stretch. And on route, probably the most embarrassing and the worst loss they ever suffered at home at Providence Park in the hand of the Vancouver Whitecaps in the playing game. Then we go to the team that will make it to the playoffs, and that first team is Sporting KC. So again, these three teams are in some way kind of very similar to each other when I kind of what I expect this team to be, where just like the Timbers and the Quakes, Sporting KC is going to be a team that they're going to be definitely top heavy on the attacking end as well. Though I will say that there will be a little bit more question with Sporting KC because they pretty much revamped the core that they had. Gone are the likes of Alan Polito and Johnny Russo. Now it's going to be Martin Garcia and one of the Ukrainian guy that I can't really quite think of his name straight away. So yeah, again, this is a new attack, though I do think that it could work well for this team. But again, the big question of this team has to be on the defensive end. The defensive end has been an issue for Peter Vermeer's team. They have definitely revamped it a little bit heading into this season. But every time when they're trying to revamp it and trying to reshape it, it just have not worked whatsoever. So yeah, there's going to be a question in terms of that. There's even bigger question when it comes to the new goalkeeper as well, because this is the first season in a long time that they will not have Tim Melia as their new goalkeeper. John Postgame is now the new guy between the stick, and while John Postgame has kind of built up to this moment where he's now going to be the guy taking over Tim Melia for that number one spot. And while I know John Polskim has had his good moments for Sporting KC, he also has not had some great moments too. And more times than not, he has had those kind of bad moments. And in some way, when it comes to him trying to fill the shoes of Tim Melia, I don't know if that shoe is going to be good enough to fit whatsoever. So overall, again, I do think that these three teams. I would not be surprised if these three teams kind of flip around in the position when it comes to the standings as well. These three teams, I feel like, are going to be very similar to each other of what I expect heading into this season. And that if I do get it wrong in terms of when I look back at the prediction, it might be just in terms of where exactly these teams could finish, or the fact that it seems like these teams figure out their defense and somehow propel themselves up in the standings. Then we go to number 8, and I'm going to say the Houston Dynamo. So again, I do think that just like last season, where I think the Dynamo is going to take a couple of step back compared to what they had in their first season under Ben Olsen. It's going to be the same thing again. Now they do have find some good replacement, at least partially. Getting Jack McGlynn, I think that is definitely a great replacement. Most likely, I think he's the guy to replace Coco Carrasquilla because he's not really a natural number 10. They're still looking at trying to replace Hector Herrera. Won't be surprised they might look for in the summer as well. But the other main concern I think I have with this Dynamo team, besides the fact that goal scoring could maybe be an issue with this team. This team did had problem last season at times in terms of goal scoring, despite playing a very possession heavy kind of style of soccer. But the big concern is that if the rumor is true that Mikhail is going to be sold for this Dynamo team, then all of a sudden that's a huge hole that they need to fill in the defensive end too. Sure, his partner Sevchenko will definitely still do well as well, but that's going to be a big miss. And we've seen before where even if you decided to let go one of your defender, if that defender means a lot to your back line, like Mikhail did last season for this Dynamo team, that could really expose the back line as well. And then there's even question when it comes to the goalkeeping spot as well. I don't think Steve Clark is on this team anymore. It's pretty much Jimmy Maurer team, and Jimmy Maurer has shown that he could be a good, capable starting goalkeeper as well. But last season he definitely didn't show that when it comes to playing in the backup role. But yeah, I do think that this team does still lack some talent, especially the talent that they lost this off season. Yeah, that's gonna means that they're gonna take a step back or not, unless if they of course can fix that maybe in the summer transfer window. And this is a good time to kind of remind you the reason why it's so hard to make these predictions is because things can easily change in the summer transfer window, or even for the remaining part of the primary transfer window, because the primary transfer window doesn't close when the season begins. It's still going. There's going to be teams that's going to still continue to make changes to their team, and it could be really different than what we would see about this team when the season is about to start, if some of these teams decide to make some big move to change their roster. Then we go to number 7, and I'm going to say it's Austin FC. So again, Austin is another team very similar to what I say about Sporting KC, the Timbers, and the Quakes. That this is a very top heavy attacking kind of team as well, and I have question when it comes to the defense and the midfield as well. We saw how poor that defense and midfield was. But the reason why I am putting them a little bit higher compared to Sporting KC, the Portland Timbers, and the Quakes is that at least they have a proven goalkeeper in Brad Stuver. Brad Stuver has been absolutely amazing for this team for the past couple of years. He at times can single handedly bailed out this Austin team as well. So even if there's a lot of question when it comes to the defense, he's going to be a guy that will at least save them a couple of games, even in those bad moments that they have throughout the season. The one interesting thing I would say about this Austin team is that they definitely spent very heavy this off season when it comes to improving the attack. I'm very interested to see how Brandon Vasquez and his return to Austin is going to look like, and he's going to have a playmaking partner in Uzuni. We'll see whether or not if those two guys can be similar to what we saw when Brandon Vasquez was with Cincinnati with Lucho Acosta. That chemistry between both of those guys was very strong. I have a feeling it could be the same thing if Uzuni can provide the service to Brandon Vasquez as well. But again, this team is going to be much funner to watch compared to last season. Getting Nico Estevez, I don't think it's considered to be an upgrade or downgrade to Josh Wolf. I feel like it's kind of an underwhelming hiring, as a lot of Austin fans have said. But I think he'll definitely play more of an entertaining brand of soccer, which is something that was one of the biggest criticism during his time with Dallas, where he kind of played a little bit of a negative brand soccer. Maybe because I think he was just really concerned the fact that when things were kind of started to fall apart for this team, especially on the defensive end, they really sacrificed the attacking power. That's also kind of something that I might be also concerned about this Austin team, where when we look at how he really revert to a very more defensive style when the defense for Dallas wasn't very good. Is he going to do the same thing with this Austin team when the fact that this defense has a lot of question as well? But overall, I do think that the attacking threat of this team is going to be good enough to propel themselves higher in the standing compared to these other teams that is very top heavy on the attack but very questionable at the back and even in the midfield as well. Now, number six, I'm going to say it's going to be the Colorado Rapids. So I think the Rapids is going to be another a good team and another fun team to watch this season as well. They made a lot of moves recently and throughout this offseason to improve the team, and they definitely have addressed some of the issue that they have on the defensive front and in the midfield front as well. The reason why I don't have them too high in the standings is when it comes to depth on this team does have some question mark in terms of that, and especially when they do lose some key player as well. This team could maybe be a little bit little to feel to go for a bit of a downgrade as well. But overall, it's a very good team to watch, and I think Chris Armas is going to once again do very well for this Rapids team. And last season they finished seventh in the standings, so this is going to be improvement. And I trust the signing that they made throughout this season is going to definitely improve this team to close to being a dark horse team in the Western Conference. Then at number five, it's going to be St. Louis City. So again, I do trust the fact that after what we saw last season in the second half of the season, the momentum that they had is going to carry into this season as well. Even though I do have question with the new head coach of Olaf Melberg, whether or not the tactics that he's going to use to the St. Louis City side is going to transition just like what we saw with John Hackworth with the St. Louis side in the second half of the season. But again, I do trust that the momentum is there. I think that all their summer signing that they made last season really hit well to a point where it's going to make this team much better heading into the season. I think this is also a very popular pick. When it comes to a lot of teams that miss out on the playoffs and who might be the biggest improvement heading into the season. It's got to be St. Louis City because I've said last season that this is a team that if they just make those moves a couple of weeks earlier and actually decided to get those moves done sooner than they did late in the season, that team would have been a playoff team. I mean, mark my words, that team was riding the momentum to be a playoff team, and I think now that they're going to have a full season with all those summer signings that they brought, and then they added even more pieces as well. Alongside this offseason, this team is going to be a fun team to watch and a team that should be one of the biggest improver heading into this season. Then we go to number four. I put the defending MLS Cup champion here. And a big part of why I picked them relatively low is the fact that, the injuries, of course, is gonna really hamper this team. Not having Ricky Poo's, that is definitely a big loss to this team. But what's even a bigger loss for this team is that they even lose some players that can step into that role for Ricky Pooch, even when he's not healthy. I mean, one guy that I mentioned is Mark Delgado. I think that is a huge loss for the Galaxy, and maybe a bit of a mistake that they decided to sell him to LAFC. I mean, I can understand that they were kind of over the cap situation. And the same goes for Dejan Jovic as well. That's another unfortunate situation of them just kind of already over the cap and him graduated from the U22 initiative kind of signing that they have to move forced to move on from him. But selling Mark Delgado, I think that was kind of a big mistake, especially selling to your biggest rival in the process as well. And then let's also not to mention besides talk about the injury sake, not having Joseph Painso as well for at least the first couple of months, that's going to really hurt the attack as well. The shift is definitely going to be more toward both Gabriel Peck and Diego Fagundes, and in some way Christian Ramirez as well. I almost forgot Christian Ramirez has come back to LA, and there's no doubt that I think he is going to be similar to what he did during his time with Columbus. He's going to be almost in that same role as Jovic has. He's going to have the the service that he's going to get for those two players that I mentioned, and then a couple of players that is still injured on this team, and he's going to get the full complement of the killer piece once the killer piece gets back together. But until then, I think this team with the injuries and the top end talent that they're going to lose, it's going to be a bit of a setback kind of season. And I don't think Galaxy fans are going to be too upset about that, especially if that also means that they're going to compete for other competition in the Concacaf Champions Cup. That is definitely a competition that they're looking to go for. And even though they're in a little bit of a tougher bracket on that right side compared to the left side of the bracket, I mean the bottom right isn't as bad as some people say it is. But you do still have to in that side of the bracket. You could potentially face the likes of Tigres or Club America in the quarter or even the semifinal as well. Yeah, if the Galaxy are going to really focus on that tournament and maybe punt games away, we've seen it before with teams committing in one competition and really focus on that rather than MLS play, then their standings is definitely going to be drawn. We saw that with Columbus last season as well, and if it wasn't for that late surge that they had in the season where they were absolutely on fire, that team probably would have been finished around like the third or fourth range in the standings. And then we go to number three. Finishing third is Minnesota. So I'm very high on this Minnesota United team, and normally when you know about something about me when it comes to the team that I root for, I sometimes be very pessimistic about the team. And maybe that kind of show when I picked the Quakes to not make it to the playoffs. And I'm kind of maybe even contradict myself a bit, saying, well, I'm not very or optimistic about the Quakes, but also I'm super optimistic about Minnesota United as well. I mean, when you look at this team and the offseason signing that they made, they definitely address a lot of the biggest need that they had. I like the fact that they, of course, finally addressed the number six need, even though ideally I would love to have a DP6, but if Owen Janae can actually do well and live up to his potential, then I think that really fixes a lot of the issue that this Minnesota team has. Same with the back line as well. If Romero is the right deal as well, and he's going to be a rock in that defense, this Minnesota team can do so well heading into this season. I mean, we already know the attack is going to be really good this season, and I also know that Eric Ramsey, he's going to be continue to cooking this year. If you thought what he did last year was spectacular, he's going to get even better heading into this season now that he not only has the players to do so, but they also kind of fix most of the glaring issue if the right piece is there. So yeah, I'm very optimistic about this team. And again, normally I shouldn't be optimistic about my team, especially a Minnesota team. that is, and especially I would say that this is probably the most optimistic I have with my team since they lost in the Western Conference Final, and yeah, that season was kind of a nightmare season after that. They really regressed. I'm really hoping it's not going to be the same case for this team. The talent is definitely there. That if they play up to potential, this is easily a team that can finish in the top four spot in the West. And then at number two, yep, I'm putting Seattle here again. Again, I know this is like a tradition I do every single season. I always put Seattle in second place because that's kind of where they always tends to finish. Although that trend has kind of broken at least in the last 2 years. Obviously, 2 years ago it was the first time ever that the Seattle Sounder did not make it to the playoffs, and then last season they didn't actually finish second. They actually finished in fourth place. But before that, I mean, this team they just love finishing in second place. Second place is literally like their favorite position with them having consecutive years of finishing in the same spot. And I have a feeling it's going to be the same case again heading into this season. Again, this is a very good team once again to the chagrins of a lot of Western Conference team as well. You know, they're very well balanced all around, and a team that compared to them with Inter Miami, and the reason why I use them comparison with Inter Miami because they're probably going to be playing the same amount of games with them also participating in the Club World Cup. I do feel like this team seems like they're going to be more prepared in terms of multiple competition and able to rotate guys throughout the season. And also, I trust Brian Schmitz does a better job in terms of that compared to Javier Mascherano does for Inter Miami. Because as I said about the season preview of the Seattle Sounder, for Inter Miami, the issue with them kind of rotating players is simply just that team is all about putting on a show for the most part. You want to put the best player game in and game out, especially in away games too, because those away fans watching Inter Miami play, even though I know they'll be rooting against them, secretly a lot of people will want to see Messi play in person as well, especially now that he gets to play against some of the Western Conference team as well. There's that pressure that you have to put in those players, even though logic is saying that you shouldn't do it because you want to rest your team to focus on other competition. Seattle does not have to worry about that. Seattle has a team where you don't not gonna have like a superstar kind of player where Brian Schmetzer absolutely need to play him, and especially the depth as well. I do think that the Sounders have much better depth compared to Inter Miami, and I know that might be crazy to say since Miami fans will immediately say, "Well, we have good depth as well." Just look at what we saw last year in the supporting cast kind of season. Well, yes, they do have some good depth as well, but actually, let me backphrase in terms of managing depth. I think Seattle can definitely does a better job compared to what we see with Inter Miami, and that overall, I think the Sounders are going to have another good season. And again, to the chagrins of everybody in the Western Conference, this is a team that is going to be definitely a team that could easily maybe even win the West as well. But the team that I predict to win the West, and this is the third year in a row that I predict LAFC is going to finish first place. Now, when it comes to finishing at the top of the conference, I don't recall any team has been able to do that 3 straight season. And it's all obvious why that is the case. It's very hard to finish first like that many year in a row. But with the way that I know LAFC has revamped their midfield as well, and there's question mark of whether or not if that could be good for this team. This is still a very talented team, and also let's not to mention they do lose some key pieces on the attack as well. Mateus Bogusz and Kike Oliveira, those are two really big departure for this team that they'll need to fix. Though with them rumored to get Cengiz Unda, and then looks like they're setting up to bring Anton Griezmann in the summer as well. This is a team that I think everybody knows that they're going to be a team that finished first, and also not to mention the other thing that kind of makes me think that this team will finish top again. They're very good at home. I mean, they don't lose at home. It is very rare that you see them lose at home really throughout their entire franchise as well. I've always mentioned, in terms of the toughest place to play, BMO Stadium and playing on the road against LAFC is literally probably the toughest place to play because not a lot of team able to get points there. Similar to what I would say about Columbus when it comes to Columbus having a really good home field advantage, and Wilfred Nancy had that insane record when he only lost like twice throughout his tenure with Columbus at one point. But yeah, I think this LAFC team, as I said many times in the past year, I still think that this team is the team to beat. Seattle, I think, has really closed the gap in terms of. In fact, I wouldn't even be surprised if Seattle can overtake that gap and can prove that they're now really the team to beat once again. I think these two teams are definitely going to be the favorites heading into this season in terms of not only finishing in the top two, but maybe once again represent the Western Conference in MLS Cup. But there we have it. That is pretty much it in terms of my prediction of the Western Conference. As always, let me know in the comments below what do you think of this video, and also, as I said in the beginning of the video, if you disagree with some of these predictions I made, if I put some team a little bit too high, or if I put your team maybe outside the playoffs when you think that they should be in the playoffs, or in case if you think that there's some team I put in the playoffs that probably is not going to make it this season as well and disagree on that, let me know in the comments below as always. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.